Hi everyone, my name is Lauren Wright and I work here at St. Patrick Parish. I actually moved out to the area a couple of years ago, but prior to that I've lived in various apartments and I've rented from various people over the years. And one thing that I've learned about myself through the process of being a renter and having a landlord is that I get distracted really, really easily. Let me give an example. A couple of months ago, a couple of weeks ago, our heater went out in our apartment. Now, mind you, this was the dead of winter in Illinois, but our heater went out and it took me like a full week or 2 weeks to actually notice that there was no heat in our house. Like I remember feeling like, oh, it's like cold, but I didn't fully process that like there wasn't heat running in my apartment. And looking back on that, it wasn't because I don't care about heat. I mean, I'm from the South, I'm from Texas. I care very, very much about heat. And it wasn't that I didn't care that it was cold. I ended up putting an actual space heater in my room at one point because I was like, oh my gosh, it's getting cold. The reality of the situation is that I was so busy, I was so overwhelmed, I was so distracted by so many things going on in my life that I didn't have like actual space in my brain to consider the fact that our heater was out. And so it took me a full week or two before I was able to text my landlord and be like, I think there's something wrong with the heat. Not because I didn't care about being warm, I care about that very much, but because I was distracted. You know, I notice this a lot in my personal life with my friends, my family, my work. I get so distracted that I forget, I miss out on things that are important to me, that matter. But I also notice that I do this as well in my spiritual life, that when it comes to my faith, when it comes to the Lord, even though those things matter to me, it's easy for me to get so distracted that I forget to prioritize them. I forget that they're important. Let me show you what I mean by that. So let's say, for example, that this is my faith life, that it's the Lord, that it's prayer, it's mass, it's the things that matter. And initially I start out holding this, right? Because it matters to me, it's important, but then life gets busy and maybe I have some drama with my friends, or there's difficulty with my family, or I have to plan a meal for this week, or work starts to get really busy, or I have people at work that are upset with me, or I get frustrated by the stuff going on in my life, or my heater goes out, and eventually everything just gets so busy. And it's not that I stopped caring about the Lord, it's not that he stopped mattering to me. It's that I got so distracted by everything else that there wasn't room in my life for him anymore. You know, when I was reflecting on this a couple of weeks ago, I was sitting with the Lord and I was talking to him kind of in the height of this busyness, right? Like it was right when my heater went out, work was crazy busy, stuff was happening with my friends and my family. I felt like I didn't have enough time to get sleep, make food, and clean my house, much less invest in my faith. And I remember feeling overwhelmed and sitting with the Lord. And I happened upon this scripture verse from John 10:10, where the Lord tells us, where he tells his disciples, he says, I came that they might have life and have it abundantly. And I remember reading that and looking at my life. And while my life was full with good things, even with friends, with family, with a job that I love to do, my life was full, but it definitely didn't feel abundant. In fact, I felt very overwhelmed. I felt overworked. I felt overstressed. I felt like I wasn't getting what I needed. And while my life was filled with things, I came away not feeling fulfilled. It just felt like there were so many things that I had to keep on my plate that I didn't have room for the one thing that really mattered, that I didn't have space for the Lord. And I was so distracted by all of these things that were consuming my time that I found it difficult to make him first. And I notice with myself when I get to these times in my life when I'm really overwhelmed and I'm overworked and I'm overstressed and I'm worried about my family and my friends, I find that when it comes to the Lord in those moments, when I'm distracted by everything else, I often find that I give him my leftover time. I'll go through my whole day and I'll be busy, I'll be working, I'll get up in the morning, I'll go straight to work, and then I'll come home and I'll be on the phone with my family, and then I'll go to a friend's house and I have to make dinner. And then it's suddenly 10 or 11 or midnight. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't talked to the Lord at all. And so I'll sit down with the leftover hours, the leftover minutes of my day, and I'll just sit there in exhaustion. And that's the time that I give to the Lord. And I should say that the Lord in his goodness, I mean, he can work with that. You know, there's no part of the Lord that hates whatever time that I give to him, whatever time that we can give to him. But I know from my own personal experience that the shift for me from living a life that's just filled to a life that's filled with abundance looks like giving the Lord my best time. And I don't mean giving the Lord my most time. I know that in my life, in most of our lives, we can't just sit and pray for hours and hours on end. But for me, it looks like going to the Lord when I'm most awake, where I'm most engaged. And so prayer for me, instead of just giving him my leftover time, I focus on being intentional about giving him even just 5 minutes in the morning after I've had my first cup of coffee, which is when I feel most awake and most invested. Maybe for you, it's in the middle of the day while your kids are taking a nap, or it's right after you finish work for the day, or it is right before you go to bed. But the difference for me on whether or not I feel like my life is abundant or if it's just filled means giving the Lord my best time. So that would be my invitation for you. If you ever feel stressed or overwhelmed or overfull, like I so often do, my invitation would be to be intentional about giving the Lord your best time. Look at your day and notice where you're most awake, where you're most present, and see if you can give the Lord just a few minutes of that time, whether it's on your way to school when you're dropping off your kids, or it's during the workday, during your lunch break, whatever it may be for you. What time is your best time? Because I know I can feel the substantial difference in my own life. The difference between when I give the Lord my leftover time and when I make him first, when I give him my best time. While the Lord is good and constant in all of those scenarios, for me, my experience shifts. And I'm able to be more present, more alive, more fulfilled, more abundant in every area of my life.